Hello everyone, Colin Cadet here for Woodwork Web. Today we're going to be making a table saw jig, and it's a little hard to describe because it does a number of things. Now I have some bits and pieces here. Here's some MDF, and I have one of these cool miter slot rails, and I have some hardware that I've picked up, and you're going to see how this all comes together as you watch when we make this table saw jig. From time to time, I want to make furniture that has tapered legs or partially tapered legs. And so every time I do this, I seem to have to make yet another jig. So this is one that I made up, and it's supposed to be adjustable, but it really doesn't work very well. And then I have this more deluxe one, and it was supposed to be adjustable too, but every time I use it, it doesn't work for me, so I have to make yet another one. I've got jigs I haven't even shown you yet. Today I want to make one that's going to do a variety of things. The first thing this jig is going to do is it's going to be able to cut boards that are warped. Do you ever get a board that is got a, sort of a wow in it? It's sort of got a curve like that, and you can't use them on the jointer because when you try and make a flat surface, it goes click at the bottom and click at the end. You go click, 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 click. You really need to cut those off on a bandsaw because you can't use a board like that on a table saw. It's not safe until it's flat. The other thing that I have from time to time is I get lumber that has a live edge on it, and some live edge you can't do anything with. And again, you need to cut that off. Now you can do it on a bandsaw if you have one, but that's what this jig is going to be used for. So it's going to have multi-purposes and should be pretty functional in all of the things that I want to do in my workshop. The first thing I need to do is make sure I'm working with a flat edge to start off with, and I can't guarantee that this is a flat edge. So the first thing we do is run it through the jointer. This miter gauge material normally comes in 3-foot and 4-foot lengths. I bought a 4-foot length because I want to cut it into 1-foot strips. Typically legs, table legs and things like that, usually range from 29 to 32 inches. So what I'm going to want is any two of these are going to want to be in the sort of the 30-inch lengthwise. So I'm going to determine where I'm going to be putting all of these to get the best use out of this jig. Okay, we're back, and there's the placement. And if you look at them, you're going to say, well, they're not even. Doesn't matter that they're not even. What really matters is that they're positioned that I can get the most use out of them, because even if they're off a little bit, it's not going to make any difference. Now, the other thing you're going to notice is that there's a strip at the back here that they don't line up to. And the whole purpose of that is because this is an absolute parallel piece of wood, I can lay my wood in this way and have it clamped down and run the table saw on this side, or if I'm using a really wide board, I can flip it around, and in this case, this side would be against the table saw, and this would be clamping the wood down over here so that it would hang out on that side. So that way I get more leverage by having this offset, because I don't need this running all the way out to the edge here, as long as I can grab the wood back here. So it really is a multi-functioning kind of jig. Okay, and we're back to the table saw, because now I need to cut some dados in our wood, and this is the scrap wood that I cut off that I'm going to be using to test on. try that one now. Oh, that's perfect. That's right even with the top. That's good. Yeah. Okay, now we need to cut the one we're going to be using. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is when I get these in, I've got these perfect little screws that I can drive into the bottom, and I'm going to do that. Now I'm not going to show you every one of these that I do because they're all the same, but after you see one you'll get an idea just how simple this really is. And mostly we want to concentrate the glue on the bottom because that's where the ribbing is, towards the bottom of the Now while the glue is setting, I have these hold down clamps, these Incra hold down clamps, really nice design. I really like Incra equipment. And they supplied this kind of a hex nut on the end, but look at what happens when you put the hex nut in here. It moves around a little bit. I'm afraid when you put too much pressure on that, it's going to round over the edge or burr that. So what I've done, I went to the hardware store and I just bought some knockdown bolts, is all they are, hex nuts in the end, and I just took and ground it down. But look at this, when you put that in there like that, it's too tight a fit there. There it is. It just fits in there just perfect. It doesn't move around. It's a nice tight fit. And so that's what I'm going to do now. While this is drying, I'm just going to take the other ones that I have here and take them over to the grinder and just knock the edge off them so that they're flat like that one. Well, our table saw jig is just about ready to go. The miter bars are glued in there nice and firm. I've done a couple things off camera and I'm going to show you what they are because it's a lot quicker for me to do it this way. The first thing I've done is I have made these little round stops. And the reason I've made them round is, of course, when you use wood, sometimes it can get askew. But if we use round, and all they are it's just a dowel with a hole in it, but we know that it doesn't matter where it is, it will always be in that same spot. So if we were duplicating or something, or just making sure that this board is not going to move, that's one good way of doing it. The other thing that I didn't mention, you could use wing nuts on top of this. You don't need these fancy little knobs here, although they're nice to have. But wing nuts work just fine, so you could use that and save yourself a few dollars in making this jig. And the way these would work, the way this jig would work, is we would just place these. Now we could put them anywhere. We could put these both in the middle. We could offset them the way we have right now. And basically what happens is we just tighten this down like that, and that firms the board up to our jig and stops it from moving, and it is nice and solid in there. So this has turned out to be a really good jig. But let's have a quick look at the taper side of this. So here's one of my old taper jigs, and the way they work, there's a table saw blade in the center. You basically push this along, and you can see that eventually the blade is going to engage the wood, and it's going to make a cut like that. And that's fine. That makes a nice angled cut. Then you pull it back, you turn the blade one angle, and push it along again, and then you make another angled cut. But what happens now when you want to make the third cut is there's already an angle cut on this. See that? We've already cut this angle. So if we put this against it, it's going to be askew. So what you have to do is you have to tape on one of the pieces that you cut off or glue it on or something so that you get that. But the easiest way of cutting tapered legs is to take the end and basically just drill a hole in it, a little hole, and then where we can make a hole like that, and then you can actually spin the leg on that hole, and I've made another jig that will do exactly that. So let's have a quick look at that. So here's the tapered leg adapter that goes on our table saw jig. And basically all it is, if you see the bolt in the end here, the bolt will go into the end of the tapered leg, and that means you'll just be able to spin that leg, and each side will be perfect and identical as a taper, rather than having to stop and glue on bits and pieces and parts. Now, I've made that, but I've also, because this side here you can only get so close to the table saw blade just because of that distance, I've put on the other side an angled, one of these screw-in angled bolts, and with this one you can actually get a little bit closer, so you could put one or the other of these on there, or both, depending on what angle and how fine a tapered leg you want to make. And we'll be using this in just a few minutes. So the first thing I'm showing you here is the setup, what it looks like on the back of the board that we're going to rip. There it is. You can see it there. Look at that. Perfect. All the way around. That's a great little jig. And that concludes our video on making this great table saw jig. What a great way of fixing up boards that have a wow in them, and you can use it for making just excellent tapered legs. I really wish I'd have made this jig a long time ago. I'd have got a lot more use out of it. Don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, we ask you to do that. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I'm Colin Cadet. Thanks for watching.